What's that story you've never been able to tell? I found out when I was 28 that my dad's side of the family had been in the witness protection program my entire life, and that their names were not what I had been told. Jesus, what are they hiding from? I work at a cinema, and while doing a general check that everything is operating smoothly, a peculiar movement caught my eye. This particular session was a Father's Day session for Pixels back in 2015. The entire crowd consisted entirely of fathers and their young children. Except for the young couple fucking in the back row. Poor, innocent 16-year-old me, fresh on the job, was gobsmacked, and I froze much like a deer in the headlights. I couldn't bring myself to give them the old, "Hey please stop fucking thanks," so the manager gave them the awkward tap on the shoulder. Cut to the end of the film, the manager and I are at the exit waiting to see the faces of the culprits. Straight out the door, operating at some serious pace, is my sister's best friend and her boyfriend. Both, surprisingly, were clearly in a great mood, until she made eye contact with a stunned Ethiopian. No face has ever gone from all smiles to utter horror so quick. Edit. Grammar. About 6 months ago, I was very close to suicide. I actually was about to do it. Thinking about killing myself, and at one point I had agreed to myself I would end it. I got home that night and it was just me and my cat, as my fiancée was at work. My cat, I think she knew I was sad, and she never sits in people's laps, sat up in my lap and proceeded to flip on her belly and play wrestle with my hand. I broke down for about 3 hours. My fiancée came home knowing none the wiser, but had brought my favorite dish from her work brewery, cause she knew I was feeling down. I've never told her that was the night I decided not to pull the trigger. Just wanna put a little edit out there. Y'all are all too kind. I tried replying to as much as possible, and it's good to know there are so many kind souls out there. If you ever feel the same way I did, be sure to find someone who will listen. It can be me if you want. Or the suicide hotline, anything. Just know the world is a better place with you in it. Stay strong. It's so easy to become overwhelmed in this world. I'm glad to hear you decided to stay. I hope you are too. Removed. I have a similar story. As a kid I was part of a program where you could be pen pals with soldiers stationed abroad. We exchanged emails back and forth sporadically for a few months, and then she stopped responding completely. I sent a few emails to check in on her and never got a reply. 7-year-old me forgot about it after a while. Later my teacher told my mom the soldier died while overseas. Deleted. When I was a college freshman I tried to boil 3 eggs, then fell asleep. I woke up to a smell. I went to the stove and the water was completely gone from the pot. So like an idiot I got some water in a big bowl and poured it into the pot. You probably know where this is going. The eggs exploded like dynamite. Scalding hot egg hit my face. It blew me back and knocked me to the floor. Here's the scary part. I felt my face and looked at the egg on my finger, but thought it was burnt skin coming off my face. I almost started crying. How badly burned was I that my facial skin came off to the touch? I walked to the bathroom, shaking, and looked in the mirror. I expected to see a horribly disfigured face, but I saw egg and eggshells. I wiped it with my hand and felt incredible relief. I also felt incredibly stupid, but so what, right? I spent the next hour cleaning egg off the ceiling, the walls, the floor, etc. My face was red for a couple days. In elementary school, we had a program called DARE, where a police officer would come into our class and teach us about the dangers of substance and alcohol abuse. At the end of the year, he prompted us to write an essay about what we learned over the course of the year in DARE. He also advised us that the author of the best essay in the class would receive a stuffed lion, appropriately named Darren. Now I really wanted this lion, but the problem with that was my writing skills were those of a typical 3rd grader. There was no way that anything I wrote about my time in DARE would stand out enough from my fellow classmates to win Darren. So I did what any desperate 10-year-old would do. Googled DARE essay contest winners, and then plagiarized the first one that came up in my searches. Now this was done diligently, carefully proofreading to ensure that I wasn't going to turn in an essay with somebody else's name in it somewhere. I went through and changed phrasing or a word here and there, but by no means would it pass through Turnitin. With less than 90% plagiarized. Confident in my chances of winning Darren, I turned in the essay to Mr. Officer, and what do you know? A week later we had our end-of-year reception, at the municipal building which also contained the police station. He listed the top 3 essays, 3rd place, 2nd place, and then he said, holding Darren, the best DARE essay submitted this year was written by Yo Soy Corey. Come on up here, get your Darren stuffed animal, and read your essay to us please. I was so excited I won the animal, it was never even a thought that crossed my mind that I would have to deliver this speech. So I reluctantly walked up, took my stuffed animal, and all I can remember at this point is shaking so bad, it looked like I was going to fall over at the mic. All of my classmates, all of their parents, and the entire local municipality's worth of police officers with their full attention on me, a 10-year-old little fraud of a student. To this day, it's one of my most shameful moments, and I still have Darren sitting on my desk for discouragement from copying others' work. It's almost like they knew and wanted to shame you for good. I was a lonely kid in the mid-2000s and I joined chat rooms like most kids, teens my age. I was a little younger than the average kid on there, as far as I knew, so I lied and upped my age on them. Said I was 15 or 16 instead of 11 or 12. I never gave actual info, I said I lived in a different state, almost always gave a fake name. I thought I was clever. I mostly used the sites to either talk to girls my age about life and school and boys, or b, role-play chat with boys because my family was very strict and religious and I was curious about sex. I was super inexperienced and thought I could get some information or at least explore some different feelings from it. Looking back, that could have gone terribly wrong, however it was the former reason that got me in trouble. A few years after my parents found out about the chat sites and grounded me permanently from the internet without supervision anyway, my dad got a call at work from an FBI agent located in our state asking about me being his daughter and my email address. I had foolishly given a girl my email address and exchanged names and small talk before she asked to exchange pictures. She sent one first and it was so weird it freaked me into not sending one. The picture was so overtly sexual that I was just not interested. I forgot all about her after that. Turns out, she was some 40-year-old child porn collector in a different time zone who was getting pictures from kids and swapping them around with other pedos. It was a very complicated but apparently normal thing for those types of people. My email had been found in his computer and so they had to talk to us, since I was still a minor. I didn't reply with a picture so they weren't too worried about it. I wasn't much help, I don't think. I still refer to that person as a her when I think about it, or when I tell someone like my so. The FBI lady called later to tell my parents he had been found guilty and sent to prison. I don't know his name, I don't want to. It definitely freaked me out for a long time. Funny story, my high school band director was sent to prison for doing that very thing in the mid-2000s. There's my I don't wanna talk about it moment. This is probably going to get lost, but I just want to put it out into the void. I'm a recovering drug addict. I dropped out of school but would still show up on campus to pick up drugs or meet people. I was sitting outside the cafe one night waiting on some pills. I weighed 100 pounds soaking wet and hadn't eaten in days. There was this girl in the honors program with me when I was still enrolled, and we had many classes in that program together. She was a unique young lady. My friend and I bullied her in the past and didn't try to hide it. She walked by and asked me how I was, and I was so clearly sick. There was an awkward silence and she asked me if she could buy me some food. She took me into the cafe and bought me a cookie. I said thank you and we parted ways. I cried so hard that night. I was overwhelmed with guilt and gratitude and shame. I never saw her again. That was about 8 years ago and I remember it clearly, down to what I was wearing. I don't remember her name, but I will never forget her kindness. It was a bright moment in an otherwise sad time in my life. Wherever she is, I wish I could thank her. I didn't know this until after, but apparently when you're a raging alcoholic you lose out on REM sleep. Lose out on enough REM sleep and your body forces you to kind of dream while awake, leading to auditory hallucinations. I'm at my job and the week before found out that if I only drank in the morning and not also at lunch, I'd get the shakes before the end of the day. I skipped a couple lunch drunks and started hearing things at the end of the day. Problem was, I didn't know I was hearing things. First day, I hear the Wheel of Fortune chant coming from a meeting room. A lady walks by and I ask her if she hears it too. I'm sure she had no fucking clue what I was asking. Second day, I hear chanting for someone named Erica in the conference room. This made sense because I used to work at a place that employed someone named Erica who did marketing visits at agencies like my former place of employment. Third day, I'm at home and I hear my roommate yelling at me, yeah, he's being a pussy because his dad smoked a cigarette. My dad used to smoke and had also had a heart attack recently. I thought he was shit-talking me, so I yell from my room, I said heart attack not cigarette, you bitch. His girlfriend and him came up and were like, dude, what is going on, we're not even talking, is everything okay? Over the next couple weeks I tried to sleep without drinking, but I ended up sleeping 1 hour or so, and during the night I'd grind my teeth so fucking hard they felt loose the next morning. I started to realize the past couple months had been filled with auditory hallucinations and I was probably just yelling at people randomly. Anyway, I've been sober for a little over 6 years now. 6 years ago, I was in Svalbard. Walking to my accommodation out of town with shopping in light snow, midwinter, little visibility. A guy on a snowmobile drives up behind me, and asks where my gun was. They suggest you always have one for polar bears. I didn't have one, and he was like, you crazy. Get on the snowmobile, there a polar bear in town. So I did, shopping bags and all. Lucky me. Wonderful pickup line, so to speak. Found an online profile of someone in another country. On a whim, decided to go on vacation together. Didn't do any communication other than email, got on 24 hours worth of flights, met up and paddled off that day. We spent 26 days canoeing from the tundra to the Arctic and didn't see anyone else the whole time. Edit. Typo. That either sounds like the most awesome thing or the worst idea depending on how it went. 2014, it was my first night in college, my roommates, strangers, didn't show up. We lived in a 3-story apartment complex, with 4 apartments each level in a freshman building. Well, the neighbors are partying and I get out of my comfort zone and walk outside. Outside, some guys are drinking and one of the guys invites me in to party, and so begins my college experience. Lo and behold, I get wasted just like many of the others. I head back to my apartment on the same level and the party has moved slightly to my apartment, but there are just like 6 people there. I start asking people to leave as I'm going to bed, but I'm so drunk, I know I don't care if they stay or go. I go to my room and there is a guy crashed in it. I tell him he doesn't need to leave, but please move over, and he does. I wake up and freak out because I have a boyfriend. I check to make sure we didn't have sex. No, but you came into my apartment asking everyone to leave and told me I could stay in your bed and hopped in. Confused, I ask him to clarify. Dude, this isn't your apartment. Took about 30 seconds to realize I just arrived at the wrong apartment and slept in a stranger's bed, my first night in college. Person facepalming female sign. Imagine you're sleeping in bed and some stranger comes in, tells you you can stay, and just goes to sleep. Like, what did he think about that? Did he consider kicking you out, or was he like, meh, this is fine? Now that's college. But really I'm glad that didn't go terribly wrong. I moved to the UK from Zimbabwe when I was 4. The first few years my parents spent their whole time trying to settle down. By the time I was 8 they realised we had never been to London. So on a hot June day we went into London. We went to the aquarium, Covent Garden, to see all the performers. On the London Eye, it was a good day. To end the day we went to Buckingham Palace. I was tired so I was resting my head against the bars asking all the questions you'd expect from an 8-year-old. After a while my parents said it was time to go. I pushed away from the bars and then felt the cold steel against the back of my ears. I hadn't noticed my head has slipped through. I panicked, a crowd gathered, I'm probably in many a family photo album, even a horse guard came to see what the commission was about, bet he wasn't expecting a child with his head stuck. By then I had accepted this as my new home, but I couldn't figure out how I'd go to sleep with a spike on the floor. Luckily an old lady had a tub of Vaseline in her handbag and my dad was able to pull me out with my head smothered in Vaseline. I like to think the old lady was the queen. Back when I was in high school, I wanted to approach this girl on a bus on my way to school. She was really hot and I knew I'd regret it if I didn't approach her. There was one big problem. There was a middle-aged lady seated next to her and I couldn't talk to this girl with the lady right next to her. I had to think of a quick way to get rid of the lady. I then woke up from my seat, slowly walked to the row they were seated and calmly asked the lady, "Excuse me mom, could you please let me sit next to my sister?" Turns out the lady was the girl's mom. I'll admit, that is quite ballsy, but you really should have seen that coming. What did she say in response? Remember when the world was supposed to end in December 21, 2012? That night a bunch of my friends and I were hanging out in my apartment, smoking a lot of weed and playing games. We made a bunch of jokes about the world not having ended. I was pretty young and dumb, so I actually had some anxiety about that. It felt good to laugh it off. We go on my balcony to have a cigarette and watch the sunset. Out of nowhere there's an enormous explosion, and the sky flashes lime green. We all stop talking and stare as the sky flashes green, pink, yellow, and there are these crazy indescribable crackling noises. I'm stoned as a bitch and I decide this is it. It's happening. I go into emergency preparedness mode for the alien invasion and for some reason start filling my bathtub with water. I think it was so we'd have water to drink if we were hiding from aliens and the water lines got interrupted. I'm stupid. We all run around yelling and freaking the fuck out for about 5 minutes while the sky continues to strobe neon colors. So what had happened was a transformer blew somewhere nearby. No idea that this was what happened in that circumstance, but due to the date, I was not the only one to lose it. My mother was out and one of her companions fell to her knees and started praying the rosary for the second coming when the sky started changing colors. Never found a good time to share that story, but it cracks me up and I still catch shit for the fucking bathtub.